the Supreme Court, the world's most exclusive retirement home. In the immediate aftermath of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader and failed attempt at baking bread, has announced that he would allow President Trump to nominate her replacement, even though he had blocked Barack Obama from appointing Merrick Garland during an election year. But Democrats still held a shred of hope that they could persuade 4 moderate GOP senators to show some integrity and stick to their principles. And that hope lasted almost a full day and a half.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell secured GOP votes to move ahead with a replacement for the late Supreme Court Justice.
Utah Senator Mitt Romney coming forward in the last 90 minutes to say that he will vote, in a statement saying, quote, "I intend to follow the Constitution and precedent in considering the president's nominee. If the nominee reaches the Senate floor, I intend to vote based upon their qualifications."
Yes, my friends, even Mitt Romney, the dad you ask when your other Republican dads say no, is going along with Mitch McConnell's plan. And I know some people were holding out hope that he would refuse to help the Republicans push through before the election, but for some reason people always forget that Mitt Romney is still a conservative senator from one of the most conservative states. People act like Romney came into the Senate with a pussy hat on, but no, he's only moderate in comparison to Cinnamon Hitler. And getting a lasting majority on the Supreme Court is what Romney and other Republicans have been dreaming about for 50 years. On his bedroom wall growing up, Romney had a poster of Superman, a dancing horse, and an empty Supreme Court seat. Now, with Romney's decision, it means that McConnell now has the votes he needs to fill this vacant seat. And there's nothing that the Democrats can do to stop him, which is why now they're turning their attention on how to get revenge.
The Democratic leadership vowing to fight back, even considering increasing the number of judges on the Supreme Court.
We first have to win the majority before that can happen. But once we win the majority, God willing, everything is on the table.
Mitch McConnell, we need to tell him that he is playing with fire.
So I asked Biden a hypothetical question. Would he consider adding more seats to the Supreme Court?
It's a legitimate question, but let me tell you, I'm not going to answer that question because it will shift all the focus. That's what he wants. He never wants to talk about the issue at hand. He always tries to change the subject. But let's say I answer that question. Then the whole debate's going to be, well, Biden said or didn't say. Biden said he would or wouldn't.
Oh, this is an interesting tactic from Joe Biden. You see, he knows that his best chance of beating Trump is if the issues are coronavirus and getting America back to normal. So to avoid a messy conversation about packing the Supreme Court, he's just refusing to answer the question, which is pretty slick. Where were you on the night that the murder took place? That is a great question. However, if I answer that, then the only thing the courtroom will be talking about is whether I'm guilty or not, and, whether my alibi checks out. It's going to be like a whole thing, so I'm going to pass. Trump should also refuse to answer questions about any issues that aren't good for him. Like the coronavirus response, healthcare, climate change, education, race relations, foreign affairs, income inequality, taxes, corruption in his administration, his weird relationship with Putin. But even if Biden doesn't want to charge into this debate, other Democrats definitely do. And some of them are threatening that if Republicans go through with filling RBG's seats, then when Democrats win back the Senate, they'll just add more seats to the Supreme Court, aka court packing, which is one way to bring balance to the courts. Although obviously, once the Republicans get back in power, then they'll add more justices to the courts. Which is why I think Democrats should just cut to the chase and make everyone in America a Supreme Court justice. I mean, think about it. Because of Corona, most of us are already comfortable working in robes anyway, so it'll be a seamless transition. But let's be honest. Knowing what we know about Democrats, ain't shit gonna happen. Yeah, when Democrats say everything is on the table, then watch out, Republicans. You're about to get a sternly worded email. To whom it may concern, bitches. Good luck enjoying your 40-year hold on the Supreme Court after that. But let's move on to the coronavirus. The worst thing to come out of China since your iPhone battery. As people have been returning to school and activities are moving indoors with the cooler weather, cases have been spiking in countries around the globe. And almost nowhere is doing worse than the United States, where the number of COVID deaths has just hit an astonishing 300,000, far more than any other country in the world, which really makes you question whether or not failing to do even the bare minimum is an effective strategy to combat the disease. Although I will say this, I truly believe that with this president and the right Sharpie, we can bring that number down to just 2. Now, if you're wondering why the pandemic has been so hard to get under control here in the US, well, take a look at what happened yesterday when one pro-Trump politician tried to make face masks great again.
And at a Trump campaign event yesterday, Ohio's Lieutenant Governor John Husted was booed for suggesting that the audience wear masks.
But if you go into a grocery store where you got to wear one, all right? Hang on, just listen up. Just listen up. All right, I get it. But if somebody tells you to take it off, you can at least say that you're trying to save the country by wearing one of President Donald Trump's masks, all right? All right.
Wow.
Wow. This crowd booed even when the lieutenant governor was promoting Trump masks. I guess we finally found the limits of MAGA loyalty. Trump can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and they don't care, but if he puts on a mask, those people will eat him alive. You know, I really love how these Trump people are the same ones who always talk about liberals getting triggered. Yet when they see a 3-inch piece of cloth, they have a meltdown. No! Ah! I would rather be the reason thousands of people die than have cloth on my face. And this poor guy, he reminded me of a guidance counselor at a school. You remember when those counselors would come and try and convince teens to use condoms? Okay, now I know you kids don't think protection is cool, but what if I did a rap about it? Someone drop a beat.
You suck!
Okay, more of an insult than a beat, but I can work with that. It's silly not to rap your willy. But it's not just people at Trump rallies who aren't taking coronavirus as seriously as they should, because apparently the Pentagon also has some pretty messed up priorities.
Breaking within the last half hour, we've learned the Pentagon used $1 billion of taxpayer money meant for masks and swabs to instead make jet engine parts and body armor. That comes out to 1/3 of the pandemic relief approved earlier this year. The Washington Post reporting the CARES Act gave the Pentagon money to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the virus. The Defense Department made the payments, even though health officials believe there are still major funding gaps in responding to the pandemic.
Okay. Either the Pentagon just doesn't give a shit, or they heard that corona is airborne and they took it way too literally. But in the Pentagon's defense, in the defense of the defense, get it? Because it's a thing. In the Pentagon's defense, we've all been there. I mean, who hasn't spent money on stuff that was supposed to go towards something else? You know, like when your mom sent you out to buy milk, but instead you just watered down the milk that was left at home, and then you used the money to buy a pet hamster from the kid down the block who just had a litter. But in the Pentagon's case, people could end up dying instead of just a hamster. Fenwick, I just wanted to say I'm so sorry. I guess I wasn't ready for the responsibility. I'll miss you, buddy. I mean, think about it. America's infrastructure is literally falling apart. Schools are a disaster. Millions of people don't even have basic health care. What's the point of having defense if there's nothing left to defend? The United States spends so much money on weapons. I'm starting to think it would be cheaper just to bribe other countries not to go to war. Like, why does the US need more fighter jets? Coronavirus has killed way more Americans than any terrorist group. I bet right now ISIS is looking at COVID like, damn, I know we said death to America, but you guys are extreme. But let's move on to Florida, a place whose state bird is the movie Bad Boys 2. With President Trump accusing Democratic states of being too soft on political protesters, the Republican governor of Florida is now taking steps to ensure that that will never happen in his state.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis moving to crack down on people who resort to violence during protests. On Monday, he unveiled a proposal for a new law called the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act.
Yeah, the bill would increase penalties for crimes committed during protests, and it would withhold state funding for any local municipalities that defund the police. There is also a measure calling for drivers to not be charged should they happen to kill or injure a protester with their vehicles while fleeing for safety from a mob. The proposal would also make participating in a violent protest a third-degree felony, and protesters who destroy public property could also face felony charges.
The American Civil Liberties Union says the bill could unfairly lead to people who are not participating in violence being arrested and charged with those felonies.
All right, there's a lot going on in this bill. First of all, as the ACLU points out, this bill could make it a felony to be at a protest where anyone else at the protest commits a crime, which is an amazing double standard if you ask me. So if anyone in a protest gets violence, then everyone at the protest is a criminal? But if a police officer beats someone at that protest, well, he's just a bad apple. You can't blame the whole police force for that. It's just a few bad apples, am I right? Also, let's be real. Saying that anyone is now free to kill protesters with their car if they were fleeing from a mob is just going to give people license to run down protesters whenever they want. This is basically stand your ground, but for cars. And I know for a fact, I don't want to get run over because someone is sick of waiting in protest traffic. No, if I'm getting run over, it's because James Corden wasn't paying attention during carpool karaoke. That's a fun way to die. And I've never seen a day. The truth is, if anyone is in danger here, it's the protesters, not the drivers. In fact, at the height of protests this year, drivers in the US hit protesters with their cars 66 times. And so apparently the response to this from the governor of Florida is, well, this thing's getting really popular, we better legalize it.